and welcome back to my channel. I am back from my week off. I'm feeling so much better, so thank you to all of you who wished me, everything good and whatnot. I don't even know how to say that in English. Wished me all the best. So thank you so much to all of you. It feels so weird to be, on a break and to go back to your routine. It's really weird to have not filmed anything and uploaded anything last week. But I'm back at 100% and I am already prepared for today's video because, as you can see right there, there is a sample already on the bust. It's not a finished sample, but it's a base that we can work with because today we're gonna make a quilted jacket. This is the fabric that I will be using. As you can see, it has these stitched squares all over, and I am so excited to use this. This color is just amazing and it fits perfectly into my wardrobe, so I will be able to combine everything with this jacket. And I'm super excited because this is gonna be a non-lined garment. So there is gonna be a lot of new manufacturing techniques that I'm gonna show you. We're gonna do a lot of edge binding, which I'm super excited for because I actually got myself a edge binding presser foot, which I thought would be a good thing to have for this garment. Obviously you don't need one, but it just makes your life easier and more neat, so it just looks a bit more, it looks better, it looks more professional. So we're gonna start today with the sample right here, which I'm gonna fit. This is just my raincoat KAYLA, which I made last October, something like that. I just cut it at around the hip line just to save a little bit of fabric because I know that I'm gonna make the jacket shorter, maybe up until here, not sure yet, depends on what I'm gonna do with the fitting. So I just didn't need everything below that because my raincoat KAYLA, as you can see right here, is very much longer than around your hip, and I obviously don't need that. I will make the sample a bit more fitted, not really fitted, but a bit smaller because this is very, very voluminous. Is that the word?
Voluminous.
Voluminous. This is very, very voluminous, so I'm gonna do that with this thick of the fabric because the fabric is just gonna stand and it's not gonna fall nicely, so you're just gonna have like a tent if you use that fabric for this coat. So we're not gonna do that, but make the coat smaller and then, add pockets and details and stuff like that to it. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm gonna do with the hood. I think I want to have a hood, but in my raincoat KAYLA I had this tunnel in the hood that you can make it tighter with an elastic fed through. So I'm not sure if I want to do that with this coat, but we're gonna see about that. So let's start. So what I want to do for sure is take out a dart kind of shaped piece in the center back because it already folds in this fabric. It's not gonna look nice in the other fabric. So I'm just gonna say something like this. This is about 7 centimeters deep. So I'm gonna take out around 14 centimeters, which is obviously a lot. So this is gonna do massive changes to the look of this garment. And I'm just gonna do like a straight line in the pattern all the way up to my neck because I don't wanna have a seam in the center back. I just wanna have a fold. So we need a straight line, and I'm just gonna pin this like this just to know what I did. Then I also want to change the side, I think. I'm just gonna take out a tiny bit of fabric right here. Also because the side seam seems to be a bit curved, or maybe that was just the fabric being on bias and therefore stretching out a tiny bit. That's probably it. I'm not going to take out too much here in the sides just because it's a bit awkward, as you either have to ease it into the side seam of the sleeve, or you have to take out a whole bunch of the sleeve as well. And I actually quite like the volume of the sleeve. I'm gonna make it like a tiny bit tighter, but not too much. So I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna do that, either with the shoulder seam or with this. I think that's something that I'm just gonna do on the pattern, as I can see better what I'm doing there. And here in the center I want to change a whole bunch because I don't want to have a button tape that is so thick. I think this one is around 7 centimeters wide, which is way too much, as I just want to have a small button tape. So I think I'm just gonna fold this in half and also take out volume that way, because I'm just gonna, you know, move them together. Something like that. And it already looks much nicer. Now it already, like, it makes big folds here. So maybe I'm also gonna take out a dart somewhere here in the middle, just where it already naturally folds. And I'm just gonna do the same as for the center back. So I'm gonna take out here around 6 centimeters and then just follow the dart all the way up and then make a straight line towards wherever it leads to. I think this is going to be the shoulder seam or the raglan seam right there. And then I'm going to take out volume that way. And this is something that I'm going to do, you know, kind of messy here on the bust, but I'm going to fix it and make it nice and neat on the pattern. So these are just visual markers, more or less, for me to remember what I wanted to do with the pattern. And then I'm going to do most of the things on the pattern itself, so that I won't forget anything. But I think we can already start with the placement of different things like pockets and so on. Oh yeah, before we do anything like the pockets, we're going to shorten it to the length that will look good. So I think about hip length would look good. So somewhere here. And yeah, I want this to be a functional jacket, so I want to have big pockets right here. And when I say big, I mean big, so these are gonna be huge. Somewhere here. And they're just gonna be square pockets on top of the jacket. And then we can think about adding another one here, either a vertical one, maybe that lines up with the corner or the edge of the pocket below that. Somewhere here, so we're gonna have one with going in here, and then we're gonna have one that is gonna be like the usual type of pocket where you go from the top. And then here on the sides, I'm not quite sure what I want to do yet, but I was thinking about doing like a slit kind of thing, so that I'm gonna do a curved edge and then like up until here a slit, and when I do the piping I'm gonna do like this sort of thing, which I think is gonna look quite nice. And we're going to talk about that later as well, and how to do that. I'm going to show you, obviously. So I think that would look quite nice. And then we're going to have a button tape here that goes all the way up into the hood. Nothing special here. And then we're going to think about, or I'm going to think about, if I want to add an elastic to the hood or not, because I don't think that this fabric is good for an elastic, as it's just gonna bunch up and not gonna look nice. So maybe I'm also just gonna do a tryout, and then I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. So to start off, we actually have to prepare a little bit. And I took out these already, these pattern pieces. So this is the front pocket flap, the zipper pocket flap, and the front pocket itself. And all these three, so this is gonna go up here, and this one is the one that lays on top of the big pocket right there, which has the zipper. And all of these pieces have to be prepared with binding. I prepared a whole bunch of binding, like a whole bunch, because this jacket is just, it's framed with binding, because we're not gonna have any lining. We're gonna make everything look neat and tidy with binding. This is 4 centimeter wide bias binding, so it's cut out at a 45-degree angle, just like this. And this is stretchy because of that, which is important if you sew curves and, you know, want to be a bit more experimental with your piece. So this is always a good option to make everything neat and tidy. But we're gonna need a lot of it because, as I said, the whole jacket will be bound with this bias binding. Before we get into sewing, as I said, we have to prepare these 3 pieces beforehand, and I actually experimented a bit with manufacturing the bias binding. So I have these pieces right here that are already bound. Is that actually the past? I think so. Binded, bound, whatever. That I already put a bias binding on. These 2 were my first pieces, this one and this one. And what I did with this piece right here is actually just preparing the bias binding with the iron and then in one go sewing it on. And I found that it's not really nice and even. I found that sometimes, you know, this edge hangs out a bit more than somewhere else. Then it's also you know, sometimes it's thicker, sometimes it's looser, so I didn't quite like this technique. So what I did instead, I was like, okay, you want to make this, you know, nice, just take yourself, just, you know, take a bit more time to do this. So then I did this, and this is something that makes a really, really even and nice finish. You just have to sew twice. So that's the only difference, and I'm going to show you how I did that. But before that, we're actually gonna prepare our bias binding. First of all, we need to make one long strip out of all of these different strips, and you will find a 45-degree angle on the ends of these strips, on each one. And that's perfect because we're gonna need this 45-degree angle to put the pieces together. So you wanna find yourself another one that has the same direction, and then once you put these together, you're gonna find that they're gonna lay in a 90-degree angle on top of each other. So now you want to find your stitching line basically and put both stitching lines on top of each other. If you're unsure about where your stitching line is, you can of course also put a line onto your piece. If I would only find my stuff while working, because I always put it somewhere and then I forget where I put it. Also, if you hear in the background like a really loud purring noise, my cat purrs really... Oh no, she woke up. She's right here. My cat just purrs really loudly today, so that's that. So you can put a line right here and then onto the other one as well. And then you want to put both lines on top of each other, you know, that they don't go over the corner of this piece. So here is the stitching line and they end at the same point. That's why you have this weird thing going on here. That's a seam allowance basically. And you want to do that to all the pieces so that you have one long continuous strip. So once everything is one continuous strip, you want to iron the seams right here just flat. Ideally you want to iron it open, but I cut it really, really short, so this might be a bit tricky. So now we want to prepare this piece with ironing. So I made this 4 centimeters wide, therefore I can fold it 1 centimeter towards the inside on each side. And it's the easiest for me to just like glide over the piece with my fingers and then iron it. And I'll try to be as even as possible. And this is probably going to take a while because it's a very long strip. And now you want to fold this on top of itself again, and then you have your prepared bias binding. So now that I have this prepared, I have so much, I hope that it's gonna be enough because this took so long. I will put binding on all of the yellow marked edges, not this one, this was wrong, of these pocket pieces. And yeah, I'm gonna show you how. So I am gonna start with this big one and gonna use the wrong side of your piece and unfold the binding completely so that you're gonna have like a raw edge, and you're gonna put it also towards the raw edge of your piece and stitch right here into the fold line. And this makes it super easy to then fold it all the way around the corner, and then you can top stitch it on this side. So let's do that with all of these pieces. So to prepare the pocket to sew onto the jacket, which we have to do, in my opinion it's the easiest if you do it before you sew the jacket together, because then you have a flat surface to work on and it's easier to, you know, work with more difficult pieces like the zipper pocket flap. So you need to put a button right here before we continue, so you can see the placement right here that we can just put onto both of the pattern pieces, so both the flap and also the pocket itself. So like this. And I think I'm gonna use gold push buttons. So I was thinking about using these ones, but I actually see that I don't have that many of them left, so maybe I'm just gonna go with silver instead. I think that's the best alternative. And you just want to do these buttons however your set of push buttons tells you to do it, because they might all work a tiny bit differently. So to prepare the front piece where these pockets are gonna be sewn onto, I actually just am gonna mark the placement of the pockets with a, you know, washable marker, so that you obviously you're not gonna stain your piece permanently. So I'm just gonna do that really quickly. I'm actually gonna film how I made the pockets again, because I kind of did a tryout on the other side of the jacket. It looks fine, like it looks totally nice. This is what it looks like. So it looks really, really nice, but I made it kind of complicated and more complicated than it should be. So I'm gonna show you my reworked version of how to sew this, which is probably a lot easier. So we're gonna redo this on the right side of the jacket. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is trace out the placements of the pockets that are on the pattern. And I'm not gonna trace the whole pockets because I have seam allowances, so they're not gonna completely, you know, have the size that is on the pattern. If you didn't do any special seam allowances, you shouldn't have this problem, but I did. So I'm just gonna trace out a few lines that are important, which is this line right here, because this has to align with this up here, and this line right here, because this needs to be the same distance as this, which is 5 centimeters. So I'm just gonna draw on this line here, and then this line here, and then I'm gonna measure 5 centimeters up, and also gonna draw a line right here, and continue on this line here. And this is everything that we need for now. Now I want to trace out the placement of the zipper, which is exactly this piece right here, but this one has a little bit of seam allowance included. So basically I can just put this right here, and then I have the outer placement of the zipper. So this right here, the outer side. And I can, you know, also, it's 3 centimeters from this line, which I just marked right here. Because if I put the zipper right here, I need to know where to sew it in, because this will be sewn like this, and this side right here will be sewn onto the flap that's gonna get sewn on here. So I need to know where the placement of the zipper is gonna end up being, because I need to cut into this, which is, you know, the complicated part of this pocket. And then also I'm going to mark the height of the pocket. So I'm aligning this pocket with this line down here, and then I'm gonna draw in how high the pocket is, and just finish this rectangle up here, because this is important that this is, you know, neat, like this. Now I can go ahead and already mark the teeth of the zipper. I'm just gonna do 1 centimeter for the zipper, because I'm not gonna be able to sew right next to the teeth, so it's gonna be somewhat of a centimeter that I will have space here. So that's what I'm gonna mark here. And inside here is where we're gonna cut open. So I'm also gonna draw in a line that is the middle of both of these, but I'm not gonna continue it all the way to the edges, or to this right here, the bottom and the top lines, because here we're gonna have to do this kind of triangle. And people who watched other videos where I'm doing pockets, I did it on this video right here where I made pants. It's very usual to do this there, or also a video where I made a jacket or a coat. This is the usual way of putting in either piped pockets or zipped pockets or whatever. So you might already know this from there. And now we can go ahead and sew in the zipper right here. So we're gonna sew right on top of this line here that I just drew it. And I'm gonna mark where I want to sew the zipper. So as I said, I'm gonna have about 1 centimeter space for the teeth. So I'm gonna put a line here, and I'm just gonna align this line with the line on this fabric right here. It's just easier this way. So now I'm able to just put this on top here. And also I'm gonna sew right to this corner right here. So just like that, I'm just gonna sew right on top of this line from this point right towards this point. So now this zipper is on, and we are going to cut open right on the middle line, and then when we get to the triangles, we're gonna cut towards the corners that we drew in earlier. Just be very, very neat while doing this, because you don't want to cut anywhere you know, didn't mark. Like this. And then we can also cut towards the other corner right there. Now once we've done this, we can put the whole zipper onto the inside like this. So what we're gonna do next is basically the same way that we usually manufacture pockets like this, which means the other side of the zipper right now. So what we want is to have here a parallel seam right where the line is as well. Right sides together with the zipper, like this. And now it's gonna be interesting because I'm just gonna draw in the line that I have on the right side of the fabric also onto the wrong side of the fabric, because we're going to be looking at this side. Like this. And this is going to be somewhere here. I'm just going to pin it parallel onto the zipper band and it should be fine. Everything I'm doing right here will be completely covered by the flap, so it doesn't really matter that much, but still I want to make it nice. Now I'm gonna sew right on top of that line that I just drew on there. Now this is what it looks like, and as you can see we still have these triangles on top and bottom, so these need to get folded towards the inside so that they disappear. You can just peel this fabric up and just take this right out, and that is exactly where you're going to stitch from here to here. So you're going to stitch on top of the teeth, which should not be a problem, but obviously you're not going to sew on top of the metal, otherwise you will destroy your needle, so be very careful about that. And then you're gonna do the same thing with the upper side, so like right here, and we're just gonna stitch these two sides. So if this doesn't look perfect, it doesn't matter because it gets covered. Obviously, if this would lay openly, you want to have it nice and neat, but as you can see right here, I completely missed that spot right there, which is fine. So next up, we are going to sew on the facing right here, and this is gonna be 5 centimeters wide, I think. I'm gonna just do exactly the same measurements that I did on my piece that is already finished, because I obviously want to mirror these two. So this is actually 6 centimeters wide. So I'm just gonna draw a line at 6 centimeters so that I know where to. Oh, I should have drawn it on the wrong side, because that's where I'm gonna sew this, because this will get folded here and put right where this line is, right here. So I want to match up these points and just sew down this line right there. I'm gonna just stitch down here. We can trim the binding right here, and then once this gets folded, it covers everything. What we want to do before we start putting the pocket on the inside though, is that we stitch down here this flap onto the side that's more towards the center front to mirror this side, because I have this stitching line right here. So I'm just gonna measure how I stitched it here and just transfer these stitches, and then we can continue and put the pocket itself onto here, and then also make everything on the inside neat and tidy, just like this. I even hand stitched some seam allowances here close with some piping or some bias binding, and then I also put the bias binding on this side here. So we're gonna do that here as well. Right here. And this shouldn't be interfering with anything. Just make sure that there is no seam allowance or anything from this on here. So we're just gonna top stitch right there. Also, these look about the same, which I'm really happy about. We can put this aside and work on this half right now. I'm just quickly gonna iron this flat, because that's how we're gonna need it, like this. And now this pocket is gonna lay with the fold at this raw edge right here, so right at where the button tape is gonna be put at. So what I'm first gonna do is just peel off the upper layer, and then you can basically maneuver this towards the inside, right where the fold, or right where the stitching line right here is of the previous stitches that we did. And then I can just put a fold here, because this is linen, it's really easy to iron basically. I'm just gonna hold this, the inside that I just folded towards the inside, and peel it back just like this. And now I know where to stitch my pocket to, because I have this small fold line and I have the stitches that I already did. So I'm just gonna, you know, match these up and put another row of stitches on top here to fix the pocket itself right there. This is a bit complicated, I know. So I'm just gonna stitch another time right here, this time with the pocket in place. Now on the inside, it looks like this. This is gonna get folded towards the center front. We can give it a quick iron. And now we can just fold this back like this. And you will find, obviously depending on your zipper, but for my zipper, this just perfectly aligns with the edge of my pocket. That's how I made it. So I can just put another set of pins onto the side, also catching, you know, the quilted fabric and the zipper while doing that. And I can also fix that side of the pocket in place, just like that. And I'm gonna have to take out these two pins right here, otherwise I won't be able to go here. Just like that, and I'm gonna sew this in place right on top of this stitching line here. And now you also understand why I put, you know, this binding right here, because this will be visible in the end, and I won't be able to put bias binding on here just because it's very thick and not a lot of space. And I just think that it's not gonna end up looking like, you know, like it's not gonna be neat in the end, so I just opted for hand sewing something on top. Anyways, this looks good right now, so I'm just gonna iron this flat again. And now I can put some bias binding on these open edges. They're still quite open. So I'm just gonna put bias binding right here and then cut down the zipper and put a piece of bias binding just open flat, how I did it on the other side, right on top here, and hand sew it in place. So now I'm just gonna add this with my domestic machine, this kind of zigzag stitch right here. I added it here as well and then put this on top, so I'm just gonna, you know, do these two right at the same spot, and that will also secure this in place here, that there won't be a zipper just like showing. So I'm just gonna measure this here and transfer it to here, and then just gonna sew the zigzag on there. Okay, so now that the upper pocket is done, as you can see, very, very nice. We can continue with the big pocket down here. I already put this on, so I'm going to show you how to do this side. My pocket right here that I'm going to sew on, I will sew on with the piping. I'm always saying piping, the bias binding. The binding, that's the real name. I'm going to sew this on with the binding facing towards the inside right here, so you're going to have a clean finish on the inside as well. And I chose that one because I may or may not have made a thinking mistake, because I didn't put any seam allowance onto this piece right here. And I did onto this piece, that's why they just don't match up. So that was my only choice, to put, you know, to iron the binding towards the inside. Obviously, if you add the same seam allowance to both the flap and the front pocket, you're not gonna have to do that. You can just, basically it's gonna look like this then. You can just sew it on like this. If you like the lines, obviously that's perfect, but you can also just sew it on as I will be showing you today, which is ironing the binding towards the inside, the wrong side of the fabric, and then just top stitching it closely to the edges all around, and you're good as well. However you like, this is basically a design decision that you have to make. And this pocket I am aligning with the upper edge of my pocket flap right here where I marked, and with the right side right onto this line right here, because then this will continue downwards. And now I'm just gonna add pins to the pocket itself. I can take this off right now and just add pins all around, and then top stitch the pocket down. Then I will also top stitch this right here and add the same kind of bar tack that I did up here onto the pocket flap. That's also just a design thing. Do whatever you like, honestly. I'd suggest to add bar tacks just because they give the piece more strength, and with pockets obviously you're going to use them a lot, so they're going to be put under a lot of pressure, and you want to add something to help it withstand that pressure, which is what these bar tacks are for. And now I'm just gonna sew right around here. So now that we have the pockets, so the front piece is completely ready, we're gonna stop this video right here. The pockets were actually quite challenging, honestly. Not the big pockets that I just top stitched down, but the zipped pocket up here. I did it a bit complicated in the beginning and then finally found out that it's way easier how I showed you. That's why you know, I redid it. I'm really happy that I did, because it's actually you know, the same usual way of how pockets are made, but I'm really happy with how this already looks like. These small pockets are up here are basically just, you know, like key pockets or whatever, something small you want to put in your pockets you can put up here. So nothing special, it's also more of a design aspect. But nevertheless, I'm really happy with how they turned out, and I'm super excited to finish this jacket. I will be showing you how to put all of the rest together in next week's video, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below and to ring the bell so you'll get notified once I upload part 2. In the meantime, of course, you can check out other videos on my channel. I made loads of other things already. I also made jackets and coats already if you're interested in that, and then of course other things, so you can take a look at that. Also follow me on my social media. I am, especially on my Instagram, giving you lots of like tips and tricks in my reels that I am filming, and I also filmed a few things about this jacket that I will upload in the next week before the second part of this video. So if you're interested, go check out the links down below. The handle is the same as here on my YouTube, so you should have no problem with finding me. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!